We are live, Live. What's the date today? July 15th, 2020. I hope everybody is doing well out there. As you are starting to watch this, I see some of you have already liked this video. I deeply appreciate that. So if you're watching this maybe in the replay, as many people do, while you're watching, please do not forget to press the like button on this video as you're watching. Once again, whether you are watching live right here on July 15th, 2020 at 9 p.m. Eastern, or if you are, once again, watching this somewhere down the road, the live show. If you are watching the live show for the first time, either live tonight or somewhere down the road, here's what we do tonight. This is a little bit of a potpourri show, I think I would call it. And if you want to know where I got that from, when I was like in 5th or 6th grade, both grades actually, I was in a musical review. I played the piano. My mother was a piano teacher, something I really don't talk about now, but and the woman who ran this would have different sections of different songs that we would do and everything. And then there would be like a potpourri section where we'd do like a medley of songs and things. And she called that the potpourri. So it looks like potpourri, the potpourri section, a little bit of everything. And so this live show is very much like that. Of course, I bring an agenda, an outline to this live show. Things that I would like to talk about that I think all of you might find interesting. Most of it, of course, having to do with true crime of one kind or another, mostly disappearances, but not all the time. And then at the end, I always, of course, preview the coming Friday's disappearance, whatever it is. We'll be doing that again tonight. But then I take questions from all of you, whether during the program, during the live show from the chat, or I get questions during the day that I then put on the outline. So that's what goes on this live show. It usually runs for about an hour and 45 minutes, but I love doing it. I love interacting with all of you. I love talking to all of you about a lot of these current events and things going on in the news, missing persons related, or just items that concern Unfound. So that, if you were watching for the first time, that's what goes on in this show. And I've been doing this since about October of 2017. So who's in here? Gail, Laura, Concha, Christine, Jasmine, LaFord. Hello, Cherie. Gail, Jill, Karika, Kathy, Ann, Indy, Karen, Ms. Kat, Amanda, Paula. Thank you all for joining in tonight. And once again, as you are watching, please do not forget to hit the like button. What's going on with me? It's been beautiful here, although it was really weird today. I was just sitting there on the couch doing Unfound work. And actually, I was listening to the interview for this Friday's episode. And it was beautiful looking out toward the west. And then out of nowhere, this huge thunderclap happened. I was like, what is going on here? I mean, it was beautiful out there. And I checked my phone, and it turned out that there was a huge, very powerful, but I should say small, powerful but small thunder cell to the east on the opposite side of the building that I had no idea even existed. And that's where that thunderclap came from. And it was the only one the whole time. Never did pass over my building. Never did get cloudy, but that's Florida. So it was really weird. But I got a little biking in yesterday, or no, the day before. Did a little bit of disc golfing yesterday. So been getting out a little bit, but restrictions as far as masks and everything have gotten a lot more tight in Florida. In fact, I even posted a picture on my private Facebook page that they're now expecting us to wear masks in all the common areas in my building. Well, that's going to be interesting. My life continues to get more complicated. Let's see what else is going on here. Amanda, thank you very much. What you see Amanda doing there right now is using the super chat to say thank you to me. Amanda, thank you very much. If you'd like to contribute to the program through super chat, all you have to do is on your device, find the circle with the $sign in the middle of it. You can hit that and donate to Unfound. You can put a message in there, a question for me, anything that you want, and you can see that it will get the colored block like you're seeing Amanda get right now. Amanda, thank you very much for your contribution to Unfound. I deeply appreciate it. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Vegas. Girl, hey, Ed, didn't you get a notification you were live? Hope I haven't missed much. I don't know what to tell you, Vegas. I don't know why you didn't get a notification, but you should have. Don't know what to tell you. Kathy, Michelle waiting through commercials. Okay. Pamela, Sharon, I would love a thunderstorm about now. Well, it was a very small one, Sharon, but the center of the county, it looked to me, got hit pretty hard earlier today, but we did not get a drop over here. I should say, you should know that I was talking. She said she was going to be watching tonight, but I would talk to Joyce Rivatuzo earlier this evening. I think we ended up talking at about 8 o'clock for about a half hour. And then I had to go jump in the shower and shave. But I got to talk to Joyce Rivatuzo for about a half hour this evening. Always love talking to her. She said she was going to be watching this evening. I hope that she's in here. And so we had a nice conversation. And then, although I did not post it in the discussion group or on the page, I need to give a huge shout out to a listener, and she is in here. I'm not going to mention her name, but I was totally surprised, overwhelmed, humbled by a listener who sent me a package yesterday, a very early birthday present package in the mail. And I opened it up and I posted the picture. Many of you are friends with me on my private Facebook page. But she sent me some salsa, some Tostitos, some vanilla wafers, and some Cheez-Its, and some of those bite-sized candies like Mars products, like Snickers, Milky Way, Kit Kat, and it was all fantastic. There's Joyce. Hello, Joyce. But I was totally overwhelmed by it. Just caught me by surprise, and a very funny card, too, being that my 50th birthday is coming up in about 2.5 weeks, but I think that's the earliest I think I've ever gotten a birthday present. So I was ecstatic to get it. And like I said, I took pictures of everything and I posted it on my private Facebook page. And yes, I put everything on the bed to take pictures of it. And yes, that is the bedspread that you see in the picture is the bedspread for my bed. Hey, I'm a bachelor. What can I tell you? Yes, Michelle, all my favorites. Yes, just absolutely fantastic. It's great. And Mandy says, mate, it's still hot as heck in Florida. It's pretty hot out there, Mandy. Actually, I was out there yesterday evening playing some disc golf, Mandy, and it wasn't too bad. I was out there for a couple hours. Wasn't too bad. But yeah, it is hot. Probably, it seems maybe even a little hotter to me because I keep my condo so cold. And so when I go outside, it feels probably hotter than it is. But then when I go back inside, it feels colder than it really is. Yeah, Mandy, it's a nice course. It's my local course, Taylor Park. It's about, 10 minutes away in Largo, Florida. It's probably the place I've played the most in my life. Thank you, Gail. You like the bedspread. Okay, great. Thank you. I got that bedspread about a month ago. I ordered it online, and I want to tell you, it's very, very high quality. I mean, I was blown away. I got it just because it's Iron Maiden, just to be honest. with everybody. And I thought, oh, this beach is something cool to have. And it really wasn't that expensive. But when I got it, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like high quality art. The albums and everything on there are spectacular. They look spectacular. And it's a great bedspread too. So I was like, I guess I got to use it. It's not just the display thing. I actually got to use it. So you'll see that if you see that picture on my private page. So back to the listener who got me all of those items. You hit it right on the mark. And I took a picture, like I said, of it. And I also sent it to my dad. And he said, save some for me. Yeah, right. Probably not. But it was funny. So he took a lot of joy in it as well. Just totally blown away. And it was really weird because the box, usually a lot of times, because I live in this building, they don't bring boxes up to the 8th floor where I live. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It just depends. And so I was getting ready to play disc golf, and I opened up the door, and there was a box there. I didn't even hear anybody out there. And I was like, well, I don't know what this is. I have some things that I've ordered that are supposed to be on the way, and it said fragile on it. I was like, well, should I open up it now? And I was like, well, if I open it up, it might take me 15 minutes, and it's already like 6:30. And I got to drive over there, and I want to make sure I get some playing in before the sun goes down. So I was like, okay, I'll get to it when I get back. So I knew the box was there. I put it inside, went and played, came back, and then opened it up, and it is fantastic. Gail says I should buy another. No, I'm not going to do that. I think that buying another bedspread and hanging it up. No, I'm not going to do that, Gail. But they do make all sorts of different kinds of what I got, but one is plenty. So that's some of the personal things that have been going on with me. Just been trying to get work done. Did the interview today for next Friday's episode. So I love getting a little bit ahead like that, and it went really well. So let's move on. Let's get to some of the things that are going on with the program. The poll for the disappearance of Jessica Garino. A large majority of you in the discussion group decided that Carson Cameron did give her a hot shot, and that is the reason that she disappeared. He caused her overdose, and then, of course, got rid of her once again because of the experience he had a couple years before that with his roommate overdosing, and him saying, well, if that ever happens again, I'm not going to tell anybody. In the think tank, I have to say, I think it was a little more nuanced, is a good word. Some of the members certainly did believe that was certainly possible, and they believed that. I frankly kind of look in a different direction, that because Jessica had been an addict for a couple years and probably been shooting up on her own. I'm very open to the idea that she might have done this to herself by accident. And what I brought up was the idea that, we can't forget that fentanyl is something that has gotten into cocaine and meth and heroin, that it makes these drugs hundreds of times stronger. And I can't rule out that might have happened in Jessica Garino's disappearance, that she got her hands, or Carson got his hands on some even worse stuff than heroin already is, and she did it to herself. So that is something that comes to mind, but I can't argue with anybody who says that maybe Carson did it to her himself. So something we also talked about was the possibility of sex trafficking. I think that's still a possibility. I think that Jessica, her demographic, being that she was a young woman, early 20s, single, no kids, needed money as an addiction, she falls right into the middle of that demographic of women who could be sex trafficked. So it's a possibility. I don't think it's a very high percentage given everything, but it is certainly possible. Amanda says, for the beginning of the episode, Carson gave me the creeps. Well, I have to think that most women probably would agree with you, Amanda. That's what makes this so puzzling, that Jessica would get involved with a guy like that and go to New York City with a guy like that. And, and the problem is, once a person, man or woman, becomes an addict, then they start making compromises. And that is certainly what drove her to secretly go live with him in North Carolina, certainly. But I agree with you that even as a guy, I think Carson Cameron would give me the creeps. Joyce, thank you very much. Deeply appreciate it. Thank you. It's going very well. Thank you for asking, Joyce. How's it going? It's going very well. Thanks. Mandy says, I'm not on Facebook, but I do believe he had everything to do with it, Carson. Maybe more of a cover-up on his part, not necessarily causing it. Certainly, I can certainly go along with that, Mandy. Amanda and Mandy agreeing. That's interesting. Okay. We got a Mandy and Amanda. I wonder if she overdosed and had something to do. Certainly possible, Amanda. A little bit. So, Edward, if somebody would want to send you some type of gift, how would they do so? Here's what I'm not going to do a little bit. I'm not going to give out my address over the program. I think that would be wrong. Let's just say that my address can be found if you go and look on there are surely free databases where my address is, but I think it would be inappropriate for me to give that out over a program like this. I don't even know how this particular listener got my address. I'm not offended by it or anything. It's great. But I think that generally everybody kind of knows where I live, but I'm just not going to get into that, but I just appreciate the notion a little bit. Thank you. But my address is out there. Maybe you could, certainly my assistant Sheree knows what it is. Maybe she could give it to you privately, but I'm not going to give it out on a public program like this. I think that could cause all sorts of problems. Rosalia Kia Ora from New Zealand. Wow. It's already the next day, right? Rosalie in New Zealand. It's already July 16th. Thank you for tuning in. That's spectacular. New Zealand. Wow. You are way down there, Rosalie, in the Southern Hemisphere. Way down there. Thank you for making the time for Unfound Live. So let's move on. So that was the poll. I would say that pretty much the think tank this week agreed with the discussion group. As I talk about many times, sometimes they don't agree and sometimes I don't agree either, but that's totally fine. Everybody's opinion counts. LaFord says, you would be nuts to give out your address. People are nuts. People are nuts, LaFord. Thank you, Rosalie. I appreciate that. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about Linda Stoltzfoos. What has transpired over the last week is a guy, his name is Justo, Justo Smoker, has now been charged with her. I don't know the official charges, but kidnapping, abduction, something like that. And it seems that it took a while, but there was a video of him meeting up with her and then her going to his vehicle and then the vehicle driving off. But in the couple articles that I read said that they needed the FBI to enhance it, whatever they do, to get a better idea of the vehicle and any distinguishing markings on it. And then using cell phone information, they were able to figure out the pinging information, who this guy was, and tracked him down. And I guess they found some evidence that he and Linda did have some interaction there. Now, of course, that's, somewhat bad news, being that she has not been found yet. That can't be good news. but they have him in custody. And like I said, the vehicle was not identified until 2 weeks later. The FBI assisted. And I even have written over my notes, which you ever see me looking off to my left. I'm looking at my notes. What are the odds that this would happen where a video camera would be? Given that this is bird in hand, Pennsylvania, out what I would call in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. And they happen to see his vehicle, it go off screen, her walking, Justo walking from one side of the screen, them talking or whatever, and then her going over to the car. The way that the articles that I've read, and it doesn't seem like she would, what we would call snatched. None of the articles that I read said, yeah, he went out, he grabbed her, dragged her over to the car. Nothing like that. It sounds much more like she walked over to his car on her own. Now, maybe he had a knife or a gun that's not visible in the video, or threatened her or something like that. But it doesn't sound to me like this was what you would call a physical abduction. It was, she kind of walked with him over to the car, and then they walk off screen, and then the car comes back onto the screen and it pulls away. I've not seen the video. I'm just going by how it's been described. And what it also says, and this is what leads me to believe this was not a random, what we call a random abduction, that it wasn't like Linda was walking and then he drove by and then turned around and stopped. He had parked and was waiting there. He was parked there for several minutes before she ever walked into the picture of this video. And it leads me to believe that Justo Smoker had been eyeing her for a while, at least a couple weeks. And this was not what, like I said, this is not what we would call a random, where he just happened to be on that road, or he was cruising around and he happened upon Linda. It's clear to me that he knew she would be in that area for some reason, because he was waiting there. And as soon as she got by his car, he got out, went over to her, and they went over she went over to his car. So we had talked about that when I first brought it up. I guess you'd say on Unfound, now still the one and only episode I've done for that. I had talked about what is the possibility that it was a random abduction compared to someone who might have been, stalking her or waiting for her, or knew that she would be walking home ahead of time. And I certainly think it falls into that latter category of somebody, a guy who knew she would be in that area at that time. That's the way it seems to me. That's the way, what I get from reading the articles about it. And let's see what some of you, Mandy says, getting a P.O. box wouldn't hurt. I don't think I'm going to do that, Mandy. Hello, Heather. Kathy says, I followed Linda's case every day and read a lot about it. Prognosis very poor that she is alive. I have to agree, unfortunately, Kathy. Kathy also says, Smoker apparently took her over to his car, Amish non-resistance. I guess, yeah, I took her over, I guess, is a way to put it. But once again, in the articles that I've read, none of them said he went over to her, he grabbed her by the arm and pulled her over to his car, or, grabbed her, around, her neck or something and dragged her over. It was, they walked over to his car. So it very well may be that there is maybe it has to do with her culture, Kathy. I'm not going to get into that. I don't know. All I know is what the article said, people who have seen the video. Kathy says he was raised Mennonite, Mennonite orphan. Yeah. Okay. Orphan. Gerald, Hello, Gerald. You heard the rumor. You said he won't be convicted of murder without a body. Well, we'll see if Tad Tobias wants to get involved in that, Gerald, and we'll see about that. We'll just have to see. I think this is way, 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 way too early to be talking about that. Way too early. But I do think that they have the right guy in custody, and that's a step in the right direction. Shuri, he also has allegedly told someone nobody. Yeah, that's what Gerald just said. Too bad Justo didn't listen to the Tad Tobias episode. Right. Thank you, Shuri. I think that he could he may be right, but I think that's way that is so far down the road that I don't think that we can make any predictions on that yet. I really don't. We have to remember, look at Zoe Campus's disappearance. Her remains were found, and they've still not gone to trial. So it could be a long time before Justo comes to trial, if they think of going to trial, and that leaves a lot of time that they could find leads and find evidence of where Linda is. Of course, I'm hoping she's still alive, but so I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves as far as no body, no case. And also obviously Justo Smoker doesn't know about Tiffany Johnson, who was abducted. It's not kind of the same thing by her ex-boyfriend. Her body's not been found, but guess what? Her ex-boyfriend, he's in jail and he's going to be there for a long time for kidnapping. So Justo should learn his missing persons cases a little bit more. Gerald says, totally agree. PA law can still convict without a body. Sure. I don't know if there's, once again, I'm no law expert, but I don't know if is there any specific law anyway? If the prosecutor wants to bring a murder trial to a jury, it's their discretion. So, and there might be some technicalities in there, but I think most places, if you want to charge somebody with murder, even without a body, you can do so. So once again, Justo Smoker, he does not sound to me like a law expert. And if that's his thinking, I think it's very, 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 very flawed, even though we know that no body murders are harder to prosecute. But what really keeps them from being prosecuted are shaky DAs, not necessarily the evidence. I think that's what I got out of my conversation with Tad Tobias over 3 years ago. Joyce says they need DNA. That would certainly help, Joyce. Certainly help. But I have to think, now looking back at that Unfound Now episode that I did on Linda's disappearance, that I think this, I think I was pretty much, close to being on the mark. And it certainly would help if it is true that he was raised as a Mennonite, then he certainly would have had knowledge of the movement of these people on Sundays and where they walked and in different services and everything that went on that day. So he would have inside knowledge on that. So that makes a lot of sense. I think this even would then lend more credence to the idea that this was not a random occurrence. This was something where he was waiting for her and an opportunity to encounter her, and something happened. So if they find the body out of state, Justo is toast. Well, I got to tell you, Gerald, what I think I know about it, I think he's probably toast anyway, but we'll just have to see. Very sad, but I think it also shows that these disappearances can happen anywhere. And if a person puts his or her mind to wanting to encounter somebody somewhere, then they can do it. But probably what happened to Linda is that she was on a set schedule. These things always happen on these days at these times. And that certainly it makes it easier for predators to plan out what they're going to do. This is the opposite of random encounters like we know happen, but I believe they're much rarer. And I believe this is the opposite of, for example, what happened in Mara Murray's case, where you'd have, some people want to believe that somebody happened to drive by and pick her up. And I'm still not a big believer in that, even though I watched some of the episodes of that Disappearance show about Mara Murray, and I didn't find it convincing at all. That's me. Once again, if you are watching, please do not forget to hit the like button for this video. Please do not forget to do that, because it's very important. This would help other people find the video a lot easier. We tag this video. Natasha does that, so it's easier to find for anybody that goes onto YouTube and does a search for true crime or Linda Stoltzfoos or anything else that I will be talking about tonight. So please do not forget to do that while you're watching. Let's take a question. I have at least 4 cases, or 4 questions, but I'm going to check here and see if we can make sure I don't want to miss any questions. So very, very, very quickly, let's just see what we got going on here. I think I got all the questions. And yes, I will be talking about Laura Bible and Ashley Freeman and what's going on there. That's some news that came out today. Gerald says, sorry for changing case, but I've been following Erica Lloyd case too. That case is so crazy. I've been in that area of Wonder Valley. It's so desolate. I've heard about it, Gerald, but I don't certainly know enough about it to comment. Amanda asks me, maybe this is the Amanda that's in here tonight watching. She asks me, any plans to expand Unfound? I think that probably, of course, I'm going to be talking about or giving you a hint anyway of something new that's going to be happening. But, we're pretty expansive already, Amanda. Of course, I do the episodes. I do this live show. I do the think tank. We have Dr. Eric Grabowski, who hosts Unfound on the Ground, which just happened a couple nights ago. I'm going to be talking about that. We have the website. We have this entire YouTube channel. We have the books. So I need to get another book out. They're a lot of work. We do a lot. So I don't know how we could be more expansive. Of course, I've talked to you in recent weeks about the possibility of a TV show happening maybe sometime, maybe before the end of the year, maybe not. But I think my impression is that we already do a lot more than most others out there. That is not a criticism of them. It's their programs. It's their shows. They can do whatever they want. But when it comes to expansion, it always comes down to, what does that mean? What's it going to mean for the episodes? What's it going to mean for everything else that we're doing? Why are we doing it? What is the goal? Is it educational? Is it informative? Does it meet the themes that we've already established for everything else that we do? That's the standard. So we're always talking about things, but I would like to think that we're pretty expansive already. But I guess to answer this question, yes or no, any plans to expand? I guess the answer is yes, because we are going to be having something new that's going to be happening soon. And I'll be talking about that in a moment. I personally like everything about what we're doing right now. I think it's all very high quality. I think that between the discussion group and the Facebook page and Instagram and this show and the think tank and Unfound on the Ground and the blogs on Patreon and the episodes themselves and the access that all of you get to the guests who are on the program. Uh, it's a lot of stuff going on. And I think it's all very, very high quality. And the only way we expand to do something else, something additional to everything else, is if we believe we can do that next thing as well and keep everything else at the very high level that those things already are. That's the only way that we think about expanding. If doing something more is going to lower the quality of everything else due to time constraints or resources constraints or anything else, then to me, it's not worth doing it. But we are going to be adding something soon in which I think all the criteria will be met. We'll be able to keep the very, very high quality of everything that we do and add something at the same time. Amanda says, yes. Okay, that is you, Amanda. So I hope that answers your question, Amanda. So the simple answer is yes. But we only expand if we think that we continue to do everything else we're doing at the same level. Valerie, I wanted to wait until the last day to do my taxes, so I'm late, but I'm here now. Okay, well, I think you're along with most people, Valerie. Chad, welcome to the program, discovered through Tom Brown's episode. Thank you very much, Chad, for joining us tonight. Amanda, I'll be talking about that in a minute. Kathy talking about taxes. Okay. Indy says new show ideas: Cooking with Ed, Unfound Shopping Channel. Well, I can tell you this, Indy, is if it was a Cooking with Ed show, then surely that would not meet the high quality of everything else that we do, because I don't cook. So it would be me making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which I don't think anybody wants to watch. And the Unfound Shopping Channel, you know that we already have the store, the Unfound store, that is run by my assistant Heather. She makes all of the new shirts now. She posts them in the group and on the page. And that is unfound-podcast.myshopify.com that she runs now. And she's the one that contacts all guests so they can get their shirts for free. So we kind of already have a shopping channel, I guess, but surely the Cooking with Ed is never going to happen. So let's move on. So Amanda, I hope that answers your question. Let's move on. Let me see. I always have a hard time running this with my left hand on this other computer. Okay. Unfound on the Ground. And this happened on Monday night, hosted by Dr. Eric Grabowski, the sole male assistant that I have. And the topic was how to find disappearance sources. So if you are interested in a disappearance, one maybe in your area, something that's caught your eye, how do you go about finding people to talk to? And so that's what that episode, it's the third episode, that's what he talked about on Monday night. Different kinds of databases and things like that. I listened. I just listened to it. I don't take part because he is running the show and I just kind of sit back and listen. And he and the people who are eligible to take part, those would be Patreon, premium Patreon members. It was great to hear so much interaction on Monday night. It was really, really good. I think that those episodes are getting better month by month. We've done, I guess, one a month so far. That was the third one. And each of them have gotten better. And I had nothing but compliments for Eric and the way he ran it on Monday night. We had a nice showing for that. And if that sounds like something that would be interesting to you, you should go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, and you get to be part of the Unfound on the Ground. I would call it kind of a class, just going through the basic steps of how to get involved in a disappearance. Once again, this past week was finding people to talk to. And we haven't yet decided on what the next topic is going to be, but I'm guessing that it will make sense and will go along with the first three, kind of a logical order. And it will be, I'm guessing, sometime in August. Really, that's it's totally unscheduled right now. But once again, if that sounds like something that is interesting to you, in addition to being a part of the think tank and getting some ebooks for free and having access to all of the blogs that I've written on Unfound's disappearances since August of 2017. So we're coming up on 3 years of a weekly blog. So a lot to read. You should go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast and become a member. Heather says, if I haven't made the shirt you want yet, just let me know and I'll get it worked up. Yes, please find Heather on Facebook or in the group, tag her, and everybody can start communicating with her if you're interested in talking to her about Unfound shirts. She and I have actually talked about some other things, one thing in particular, some stickers or something to put on your car, but we're not quite, I don't know if Heather and I are quite there yet on that. That's totally under her control. My stipulation is no different than the day that I started with the shirts, making them, doing them myself, like this one right here, that I don't want this to be seen as some sort of money-making operation where people are just selling, as they do on most other programs, selling all sorts of stuff just to make money. My attitude has always been that if we're going to sell merchandise, then it has to do something with the missing persons cases that we cover. And if it isn't something like that, then I want to make sure that the program is not making any money from it. So it would be more something like a 501c3, even though that's not what this is. I just don't want anybody to get the idea that I'm profiting or the program is profiting off of disappearances. Okay, I think that's a bad look for the program. So that's why guests get books and their shirts and things for free. And any money that is made off of selling shirts or anything else from the books goes right back into providing things for the guests. And sometimes my assistants get some things too. So that's very important to me. I just don't want, because my impression is that people start a podcast and already they're selling all this merchandise and everything. I don't want to be seen as some kind of profiteer. Not that I have anything against profit. That's why most businesses get into business, but that's not really what we do here. But Heather is doing a great job, kind of switched up the style of the shirts, and she certainly has improved them. So I hope you will take an interest in that at unfound-podcast.myshopify.com. Decals. Thank you. I said stickers. Heather wants to make clear it's decals. So Heather and I have certainly talked about that. So Michelle, we all know you better, Ed, and your staff. Thank you, Michelle. Heather said, I would be interested in hearing the viewers' ideas of foundations we could donate decal profits to if we go that route. Yes, we could certainly donate to different ones. So if anybody wants to put together a list, we'll certainly take a look at it for sure. But getting back to Unfound on the Ground, that is a program, a series that is set up for premium Patreon members, $12 a month and above. And it was great to hear the voices of some of you on Monday night, like Jessica and Kathy and Delane and Tanya. And of course, Cherie was in there, Natasha was in there, and a few others got to give some opinions and ask questions. And it's always neat to hear your voices, because usually it's just, through the chat. So I don't know what most of you sound like. So it was really, really interesting. And everybody that came to that discussion on Monday night did such a great job. So the next one, once again, I'm guessing it's going to be in August. I don't know what the topic is going to be. I'm guessing it will be on a Monday again, probably at 8:15 p.m. Once again, though, we are continually reassessing that to make sure that it is a time and date where most people can access it. Okay, and some of you, the Charlie Project, some of you are giving out some examples and suggestions for foundations. Great, keep doing that, please. So that's Unfound on the ground. What I really liked what Eric did on Monday night, before I move on to something else, is, he does have experience. He worked on Donna Mikalenko's Disappearance for a while before he ended up being a guest of the program back in 2017. He's done a lot of research, done a lot of reading and everything. And I was really happy to see that he was able to talk about some of his experience on Monday night. And I hope that he continues to do that. I think that brings a lot to the discussion. Let me answer another question, because we're going to be getting into some deeper topics here in a moment. Paula asked me, I know Paula's in here. Paula asked me a non-true crime question. She asked me, what is my favorite dog? And if I had a dog, what would I name it? Well, the first part of that question is very, very easy to answer. My favorite kind of dog is a mini or a miniature wiener dog, miniature dachshund. So, I know people think dachshunds, they think of the real, long ones. Whereas when I was growing up, first of all, we had a West Highland White Terrier when I was like 10 or 11. It was a very mean dog. I think it had been abused before we got it. It liked to bite people. It bit me on the face. It bit me on my hand, and we eventually had to get rid of it. But it was when I was in 8th grade. So 84, something like that, 1984. My dad's dad, my grandfather, got us a miniature dachshund, a red miniature dachshund. And when he finally got full grown, I think he was maybe 10 or 11 pounds, something like that. And his name was Fred. And Fred was great. He was great. Totally crazy dog. Loved to go fishing, loved the outside, loved to run around, loved to snuggle up. Your stereotypical dachshund that likes to burrow into things, get under, when he'd get under towels, get under the covers, snuggle up against you. And he loved to go out, and would take him to Canada fishing. And he loved to run around the fishing boat and grab onto the fish and jump into the water after the fish. And he loved to jump in the water and chase bobbers. Just a spectacular dog. But he was sneaky, as miniature dachshunds are known to be. They can be a little mischievous. And he was a little bit of a yip dog. But he was a purebred red miniature dachshund. But we had to put him to sleep December 10th, 1995, because he got a disease of his adrenal gland or something like that could not be fixed. And he was 11 years old, so we had to put him to sleep. Very, very bad day. Probably the worst day of my life until my mother died in November 2018. And very sad. And so that would be my if I could. I don't have the patience to take care of living things. I just don't. But I love animals. I'm certainly a lover of animals. That's why I can never be a hunter or anything like that. But it would be a miniature wiener dog, probably just like Fred, the same color, red. I don't know if I'd name him Fred, though. I think that would be wrong, but it would probably be some funny name. Probably like, for me, when I'm like out in the disc golf course and I will encounter people who are out there with the dog, and I'll start talking to them, and they'll have like a little poofy poof dog. I don't know. and it's like 4 or 5 pounds and they have it on a leash. One of the things I always say is, so what's this dog's name? Killer? That's just me. And if I counter a person with like a really, really big dog, I'll be saying, so what's this dog's name? Tiny? That's just the kind of guy I am. So it would probably be some sort of weird name. If I had a wiener dog, maybe its name would be called Bun, being that he's a wiener dog, and Bun, or maybe I would call him, I don't know, Mustard or something. I don't know. But it probably would not be your regular standard name. It would be something that's like ironic, an ironic name or something like that. So, Paula, I hope that answers your question. But I'm a big wiener dog fan. The miniature ones, the big ones, they can be a little scary once they get barking and everything else. The miniature, I think, is much more my size. And because I had such a great experience with Fred, he was such a great dog. And so that's probably what I would say would be a red miniature dachshund with some sort of ironic name. Let's see what everybody's saying here. Cherie giving Eric some props for doing a great Unfound on the ground. Thank you for that, Cherie. George Gerald says Welshie / Bulldog. I love Bulldogs too. Love them. Great. Valerie, I have a Bull Terrier Shepherd. And Mandy says I was a vet assistant a while back, and Westies can be very aggressive. Yes, they can be. My aunt also had a West Highland White Terrier that had all sorts of, it didn't have any tear glands. So all the time she was putting drops in its eyes. So the 2 West Highland White Terriers that I've known in my life were kind of messed up dogs, unfortunately. Very sad. Gerald says he'll name his next dog Bob. I love that. Tammy says 2 Chows. Okay. 3rd Pomeranian. These are little dogs. And Cherie says, I learned something new every Wednesday. Well, that's what we're trying to do here, Cherie. Kathy says, I've always loved dogs of any kind. My daughter's dog is part Lhasa Apso, part Doxy. She's wonderful and 10 years old, mostly stays with me downstairs. I love that. Vegas says, I want a husky, but I don't think they do well in the Vegas heat. My next door neighbor, growing up, Vegas girl out there in Leechburg, when I was growing up there, had a Siberian husky, like one of those sled dogs that lived outside. And he was beautiful. His name was Koyak. Great dog. Very friendly. Always wanted to jump up on you and everything. Beautiful dog. And he and Fred, sometimes they got along, sometimes they didn't. You have to imagine this huge husky running after this 10-pound miniature dachshund. Hilarious. Maltapoo here, people telling Sheltie, everybody's Chihuahua. Everybody's giving their different dogs. We can talk about dogs all night, probably. Huskies and German Shepherds. Little Bit says, I have a Winnie dog and a Chihuahua and a Winnie dog mix. Love it. Okay. So that's my answer, Paula. Love wiener dogs. And the funny thing is my dad had a miniature dachshund when he was growing up as a kid. And that dog's name was Dan. Okay. So let's move on. I know most of you, or many of you, have seen the new news that Ronnie Busick has been charged. Let me get down here to the right thing here. Okay. Ronnie Busick has been charged. I'm going to just read something that I typed down here. The last surviving man suspected in the 1999 murder of 2 missing girls from Welch, Oklahoma, pled guilty in court on Wednesday. That would be today. Ronnie Busick is charged with accessory to murder and will be sentenced to 5 years in prison and 5 years on probation if the remains of Ashley Freeman and Laura Bible are found by August 31st, so a month and a half from now. If the remains aren't found, Busick will be sentenced to 10 years in prison and 5 years of supervision. Now, it should be known that in another article it says that he is admitted to withholding information. And so, what do I think of that? Where do I think this is going? Thank you, Christine, for the super chat donation. Good to see you tonight, Christine. I hope you're doing very well. Thank you. Is this enough? Are these enough years? Is it enough? Is this this deal, I guess, that they're giving him? Is this a deal that is enough to cause him to say where they are? Well, the first question is, do we believe he knows where they are? It makes sense that he would, and we only have his word to go on, given everything that went on after the Freeman parents were murdered. And of course, it's suspected that Ashley and Laura were tortured for a few days, and then they were murdered and then disposed of somewhere. The problem, my belief continues to be that this is a kind of control that killers like this try to exert over their victims. Even though their victims are dead, it's control that they continue to exert over the families of these victims. And because these killers don't have control anywhere else in their life, they're going to jail, and they're going to have to live by somebody else's rules for a very long time. Everything is out of their control, and this is the one thing that's still under control, and they will grip it as hard as anything in life. So, first of all, we have to decide, does he know where their remains are? And second of all, even if he does, is giving him a 5-year break enough to break his silence? I have to admit that I am not optimistic about this. I know that his defense attorney has said, well, he got shot back in the 70s and he had memory problems and things. I don't know what to make of that. And thank you, Angela, for the super chat contribution. Thank you. And Ms. Kat, thank you for your contribution as well. Thank you. You're both very generous. Thank you. I just would not be too hopeful here. I think that this goes back to like the Teresa Butler, where I believe to be her killer has gone to jail for so many years. Now it's longer than 5 years, but he's going to be there. And, he has the story about cutting Teresa up and dumping her small remains in a ditch somewhere. I don't believe that. I don't say there's any proof to the contrary, but I personally don't believe that. It's just something that these horrible people do. So I guess what I'm saying is, if he doesn't reveal where they are by August 31st, is 10 years long enough? Probably not. Probably not. I know that was the reaction to some of you earlier today when somebody posted about the story that has come out today. I agree with you. It doesn't seem like long enough, but I'm not a legal expert. I don't live in Oklahoma. I don't know what the laws there are. And we just got done talking about how sometimes no body cases can be very difficult to prosecute. But, the problem I have is you still have two other remains, Mr. Freeman and Mrs. Freeman, where you do have their remains, and they were in that house and they were executed. And this guy only seemingly gets, where do they figure into all of this? So it seems like I hate getting into a situation where I'm judging how other people do their jobs like I'm some expert and know-it-all. I'm sure if the prosecutor or the DA was here, he or she would have a perfectly logical explanation for why this is going this particular way. I'm not saying it would satisfy any of us, but I'm guessing he or she came to that conclusion given the information that he or she has. It just, I guess, emotionally doesn't seem adequate. Angela says that's just a slap on the hand. It certainly feels like it, Angela. It certainly feels like it. I guess the other question is giving him 5 years off enough of a break if he does admit where Laura and Ashley are and authorities go there and do find them? Is giving him 5 years off the right number? I guess, but I think that would be feeling much better if he was getting a 20-year sentence and was getting 5 years off. So it would be 15 in contrast to a maximum of 10, and he gets 5 years off and it's only 5. 5 years, I guess, sounds good to me if he was getting 25 years, not 10 years. But once again, it's easy for me to talk. I'm not there. I don't know what those internal conversations are. And Pamela, thank you for your super chat contribution. You're very kind. Thank you very much. I don't know. I've not talked to Laureen, Laura's mother, in quite a long time. I'm guessing that she's made a statement about this that's out there somewhere. I have not seen it. So I think we have to, here we are all just spectators here. I got to believe that Laureen and her family, or anybody else who's left in Ashley's family, I think at this point that they'll be happy with whatever circumstances happen where these two young women's remains are found and are brought home. So it's easy for us to judge. We are spectators. We're outraged. That all makes total sense. And we're not wrong for feeling that way and thinking that way. But I'm guessing from the family's point of view on both sides, I think at this point, they've been living with this for 20 years, that they're eager for this to come to an end. And if it means only giving this guy 5 years for everything else that happened, then that's what it means. And personally, I will just defer to them in whatever they think. I don't know what they think. They may agree with us that it's too late. They may think something totally different. In the end, I'll just defer to them. They are the ones who have been wronged. They are the ones who have been in pain over the last 20 years. And whatever they think is good enough for me. But I think, once again, from an outsider point of view, it does seem a little light. But like I said, none of us has perfect information, complete information regarding all of this. Let me go back up here. Angela, I had a collie. Shelties are great. Collies and Shelties. People talking about their dogs. I love it. Tammy says, I have a question. Missing couple from Bristolville, Ohio, John and Shelley Markley, missing since December 1995. They had 5 young children at the time and were married for 16 years. Tammy, I am not familiar with that disappearance. I've never heard of it. If you think that is a disappearance that, we should work on at Unfound, please contact me personally at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, or you can contact my assistant Emily on Facebook, and we'll do what we can. But off the top of my head, I really don't know anything about that disappearance. I just does not ring a bell at all. Gerald seems to think that given the sentence in the break that Ronnie Busick will sing now. Gerald, maybe. I have to admit, though, I'm not optimistic. I'm not hopeful. I've just seen too many of these things go the opposite way. So Michelle says, I agree, Angela. Angela says, that's just a slap on the hand. Michelle agrees with Angela, probably not enough of an incentive. Cutting his sentence in half. Like I said, I'm going to say what I said again. 5 years sounds reasonable to me if he's getting 25 years. But giving him a 50% discount. But once again, it may be something that, we don't know. There might have been conversations between the prosecutor and Laura and Ashley's families, and that's something that they worked out. I don't know. I really have no idea. Suzanne, I think it will be the only way they may find the bodies, and it's some discounts work on these, and many times they don't. That's why I'm not hopeful. Sheree says, yes, 5 years off can't be half the time. Right. Tammy says he probably knows. Michelle says they deserve closure. Tammy, I heard that the Charlie Project may have done the story. Well, it may be that Megan wrote a blog about their disappearances. I really don't know, Tammy. I don't know. Right. Cherie says, Michelle, I think you're the best person to give perspective in this situation. Right. Michelle, on our side of the family, I would definitely want Brandy home at all cost. Yep. I will say from personal experience, talking to many families behind the scenes, something that we don't talk about in official interviews because I think it could taint maybe what's going to happen. But many of them have said that they just want to know where their loved one is. And many times they say, even if he or she was murdered, you know what? We just want to know. This is usually much more common, of course, for the disappearances that are older, 20, 25, 30 years old. Newer ones, a little bit different of an attitude. But on the older ones, 20, like I said, you get to 2 decades, 3 decades, then people start saying, I don't care if the suspect's still alive. I don't care if he never goes to jail. I just want to know so we can bring my loved one home. Very common. I can't blame these people. It certainly maybe a little bit undermines our judicial system, but I certainly can't blame them for feeling the way that they do. So, certainly not. Angela says, when he gets out, what other crimes might he commit? Angela, is certainly true. Ronnie Busick, though, the good news is that he is not a young man. And just got to hope that his killing days are behind him. But you're right. We're all safer if he was behind bars for the rest of his life. But given everything, let's put it this way. We just, having gone through the Teresa Butler situation a few months ago, to me, I got to tell you, to me, that sounds a lot more egregious than this. This doesn't sound very good to me either. But with Teresa Butler's, to me, it's so obvious that the suspect is lying and getting away with it. That's what I don't like. Whereas in this situation, I haven't heard anything where Ronnie Busick is coming out and saying, I'm totally innocent. I wasn't there that night, on and on and on. Remember, in the suspect, the guy in Teresa Butler's case, he's claiming that she overdosed by herself on meth or whatever it was. It's disgusting. And that one upsets me more in this, although they are both pretty bad. Pamela says, I would want to know. It's better than not knowing. Yeah. Sheree, never been in that position, but I would be willing to let someone walk to know where my child was. Just my 2 cents. Yep. Very common. Joyce says, you're right, Ed. I wouldn't care if I ever went to jail. If they ever went to jail at this time, if I could know. Yeah. Regarding both your daughters, Joyce, I know you feel that way. And like I said, I think the older a disappearance gets, the more families go toward Joyce's way of thinking. Of course, she's been living with her daughters being missing for over 40 years. Whereas, like I said, my perception is newer disappearances, 5 years old, 3 years old, 7 years old. There's still that idea that they want their loved one found and they want the suspects to go to jail for the rest of their lives. And that makes sense from a judicial point of view. But there is some point in there where people start changing their minds because it's gone on so long. Michelle says, and I agree with that, Ed, about undermining, but knowing is at least an answer. Sure. So that's what's going on. I don't know if we're necessarily surprised by this. We knew that Ronnie Busick was in custody. He'd been there for a while, easily over a year. Not sure where it was going to go. We knew that there was some digging going on, some checking of wells and all of that. And so far, they have not found anything. It seems to me that they had him in custody and they were hoping that he would just say something and they would get lucky or something, or maybe they would go get some tips and go out there and find them without Ronnie's help. It's probably what they were really hoping to do. And it got to the point where they figured, we can't hold him under these charges. We can't hold him forever. So they eventually had to make the deal that they did. That's what it seems like to me. I certainly hope that Ronnie does lead them to their bodies before August 31st. But what would I put the odds at? Not very high. 20%? 20%? 1 in 5? 1 in 5 chance? Probably. So there's that. But at least it's some news. There's somebody at least being charged with it, and maybe something will come of it. Let's move on to this. I had mentioned that there's a new project that, and Cherie, of course, the moderator for the every live show on Wednesday nights, she came up with the idea. I don't know, Cherie, maybe 6 weeks ago or something like that. And I can't talk about it right now. Once again, Cherie, it will be up to Cherie. Cherie is going, like Eric is leading Unfound on the Ground. Cherie is going to be leading this new thing. But I guess what I want to say about it without giving too much away is that, in fact, I think maybe Cherie has decided on a name for it, but I'm not going to get into that either. Maybe give you a little behind the scenes a little bit. That's one way I guess we could put it. Just something new, a little, of course, very different than anything else that we are doing right now. And it is something that I can't tell you this. It's not something that will be based on Patreon. This is something that we will be doing, and it will be for free. It will be on some social media platform, and that's all I really want to say about it. But Cherie came to me with it, and after me being getting confused about what she was saying, my fault. We got that cleared up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, let's definitely do this." And that's the kind of atmosphere that I like having with all of myself and my assistants and how we interact. I want all of them to be always very open about ideas and how they see things and new ideas about things that we could be doing. And I think this is a very good example of that. I think it is. Just like when Eric brought up the idea for Unfound on the Ground, it was like, great. Okay, man, do it. Just give me an outline of what you're thinking. We can talk about it. You'll be in charge of it, and I'll listen and I'll critique it, and we can go over it after you're done and, see how we can make it better. And same way with this idea that Cherie came up with. And once again, it's different than anything else we are doing. And so be looking for that. It'll be up to Cherie to determine when it will be announced, and how we're going to announce it, and when we're going to announce it. We have to figure some of those things out, and some of the format issues and how we all, but Cherie will have complete control over that. And we will serve no wine before it's time, as Orson Welles used to say for, was that Ernest and Gallo commercials from the 1980s. So we will not reveal everything until we're ready to go forward with it. Thank you, Suzanne. That's very kind. Christine, once again, thank you again. We're getting those Canadian dollars. I don't even know what the exchange. Christine, do you even know what the exchange rate is right now between the U.S. and Canada? You know, I was there, like, of course, in September of last year, and I don't even remember what the exchange rate is. All I know is I remember the gasoline prices were so high up there. I was like, I almost lost my mind. And I know you go by liters up there, but when you do the conversions and everything, I was like, oh my gosh, gasoline prices in Canada are crazy. So, but Christine, thank you very much. You're, I think, one of the most loyal Canadian viewers and listeners that Unfound has. Thank you very much. Cherie says, thank you all. Please be easy on me. I'm not as confident as Eric, but it's going to be very exciting. I'm so lucky to have that support. Cherie has more confidence than she lets on. Paula, any news about the documentary you were interviewed for? Paula, that's a great question. I haven't talked to that guy in a while, so I don't know what's going on with that. You know, the issue with documentaries is that they are usually shot or filmed according to the budget. So you get some money, you film it for a while, you run out of money, you put it on the back burner, you get some more money, you film it for a while. So sometimes that's why documentaries take so long to complete. And it's been a year since I did my part of it. And once eventually it comes out, it's going to be really funny considering how I've changed. So I don't know what's going on with it. I've not talked to him for a while, just to be honest with you. I don't know. But thank you for reminding me of that, Paula. Amanda says gasoline is over $5 a can. It may be. I don't know. But I just remember doing the conversion from liters to gallons, and we got gas in my dad's vehicle. We had to get some gas so we could make it from Canada, at least back into the United States, and then get gas again. And it was just a crazy number. Okay. So I talked about the new project. Let's take another question from Elena. I think that's how it's pronounced. Elena. Elena, maybe. What inspires me most? And have I always found the mysteries compelling? I have. And what inspires me most is having effect on these people's lives. Maybe I have a different attitude toward it because I'm not married. I don't have any children. I'm probably not going to have any children. So how do I leave a mark on this world in a positive way? Of course, there's all sorts of people out there making marks in a negative way. But how do I, whatever I came in contact with in my life, how do I leave it in a better situation than when I found it? That's what inspires me. And that's what I try to do with all of the guests is I want them to be in a better position after they've been on Unfound, in contrast to before they've been on Unfound. Now, that may be that it's just simply that now the disappearance is better known and that they make a couple more contacts and I can keep in contact with them and they know that they can trust me and they have somebody in this world, because there's so many scammers and everything else, that they know that there is a person they can go to at any time, and what I say is going to be the truth. That doesn't mean I'm going to agree with them. That doesn't mean we're going to think the same way. It doesn't mean that we may not, have differing opinions and everything else, but they know that I'm always going to be honest with them. And not only that, but I will give them the reasons that I think the way I do, that I'm just not spouting off stuff just for the heck of it. And I think for a lot of people, that's enough, because they do run into so many people who maybe are just kissing their butts or pretending to know what they talk about and don't, and people who they call who never call them back. And I think it's nice for somebody to come into their life, whether I'm doing Unfound with my assistant, everything or not, that they now have somebody on their side that's been doing this, has covered a lot of disappearances, knows a lot of people, is honest, is knowledgeable, and can speak to them in a way that they understand. So that's what inspires me. And that's, I think, always been kind of my idea, my deal, I think, for my entire adult life, that it's, let's just try to have a positive impact on whatever you're doing. Michelle says, thank you for that. I'm not going to read. That's just way too complimentary, Michelle, but thank you. And Michelle says also that you make us consider other avenues. We can get tunnel vision. Yeah, that's certainly, that can happen, Michelle. Sheree says, really good answer. Honestly, this is why we put up with each other. If people only knew, Sheree. Thank you, Rosalie. So that's my answer, Elena. I don't know if you're watching tonight, but that what inspires me most. And yes, I've always been interested in missing mysteries, in search of. First show that ever, it was one of those things, 7-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old living in Gilpin Township, Pennsylvania, farmland, kinda, north of Pittsburgh. And then you watch this show on Saturday afternoons, and Leonard Nimoy is talking about, visitors from outer space, or the Bermuda Triangle, or Amelia Earhart, or, all these things. And I'm like, man, there is this world out there. It's these things are, now granted, now that I look back on, a lot of them kind of hoaxes and things, but as a 6 or 7-year-old, you're like, man, this is fascinating. Man, there is this world out there that is just crazy. And what I grew up to find out, it is certainly crazy, but in a totally different way. So that's where I got my start. Let's move on to this. I had I'm not going to say who it was, of course, but I had a former guest contact me yesterday, all up in arms. It had nothing even to do with the disappearance in which she was the guest on. But maybe some of you have seen this. I know all of you get to these other groups and things much more than I do, but there is this guy, I'm not going to say his name, who is out there trying to draw a connection between the disappearance of Brandy Hall and the disappearance of Jennifer Kessy. Now, some of you can say whether you've seen this guy posting and everything or not. And this former guest contacted me all up in arms because she was seeing this guy post and thinking nobody's paying attention to this guy. And he says he knows all this information, and why, I'm really up in arms. Why are people ignoring him and everything else? And I had heard this rumor, this urban legend, or whatever you want to call it, probably a couple months ago. I don't know why. Maybe one of my assistants brought it up to me. I don't remember. And kind of dismissed it. But when a former guest that has nothing to do with either of those disappearances and is a totally different state from where they happened, is contacting me, I was like, well, maybe I should look into this and see what's up. I want to tell all of you that this guy is a hoaxer. Certainly true. Certainly true. Now, I know that there are a couple people out there who are coming to his defense, but most people that I have seen who have talked to him one-on-one, either through Messenger or something else, say that he's a total kook. You try to ask him about how he knows all this information that he's typing out there, and he never wants to give any reasons of how he knows and everything. My perception is that, and this is because of what one of the people wrote, having talked to him, is that this is just a guy who's looking to get back at his ex-wife. He's making the claim that back in the 90s, his ex-wife tried to get him killed through a hitman, and then his ex-wife is responsible for Jennifer Kessy's and Brandy Hall's disappearances. Now, I know most of you know who Jennifer Kessy is, but Brandy Hall was a firefighter down in Malabar, Florida, down on the Atlantic coast. Of course, Jennifer disappeared from Orlando. I've actually been to that apartment complex. But down there on the Atlantic side of Florida, and she was a firefighter. I think her disappearance was covered on the show Disappeared. Her husband was involved in illegal marijuana growing, and then she disappeared, and then her truck was found, and blood was found in it. Well, this guy was trying to say that Brandy Hall's disappearance and Jennifer Kessy's disappearance are connected through his ex-wife who tried to have him killed 25 years ago. Never, and claimed also, in addition, claims that the Kessys, Jennifer's parents, know that she was murdered. They know where she is and everything, and all they're trying to do now is, through this GoFundMe or whatever they're doing, they're only doing that to put money in their pockets. Now, you know that I have been critical of the Kessys, but of course, I've come nowhere near that. My criticisms have been regarding their relationship with the Orlando police and some of the things they've done regarding the investigation. Personally, I don't know them. They're perfectly fine people. I don't know. But that is a salacious allegation to make toward the parents of a missing woman, that they're just raising money to put money in their pockets. And they know everything that's already happened. This guy is a kook. I'm not mentioning his name. In fact, it seems he's been banned from most true crime groups out there. Even the ones that where a couple people, are buying into his shtick. And on top of that, it seems that I think at least one of his profiles on Facebook has been banned. Just crazy. It's just, I got to see some of what he's written, and it's amazing how these types of people can make things sound so believable. It's amazing. And, so I'm wondering, have any of you, does this ring a bell for any of you? I know some of you are in other groups and pay attention to a lot of things that are going out there. I wouldn't even be talking about this except for a former guest contacting me about it. But I looked into it. I took about an hour and a half yesterday to try to figure out what was going on, seeing what people were saying about him, find out what his deal is. And Heather says, how do I not know about this guy? I don't know, Heather. I don't know, but we can certainly talk about this. I will give you the name and everything privately. But I've looked into it, and I think he's just a kook. I think he's a guy, I don't know, he may have a mental issue, or this may all just be for fun, or he's trying to get his ex-wife in trouble because, who knows, she's trying to get him for more child support. I have no idea. But it's certainly the guy. I just, on top of the fact that I forget the year that Brandy Hall disappeared, but it's been a while. Jennifer Kessy, of course, has been missing for 15 years. And suddenly, after all these years, this guy who is not in the crime business, he's not a private investigator, suddenly comes up with this theory all on his own. It's just crazy. It's just two totally different types of disappearances. There's never been any allegations that Jennifer or anybody in her family was in the marijuana business or anything else. And, with Brandy Hall's, the way I understand her disappearance, there are at least suspects in her disappearance and her movements and everything else. I don't know. It just sounds crazy. And this guy, I think, is crazy. Or he's just a troll, just pushing buttons of true crime people, as some people have been known to do. But I want you to know, I've looked into it for about an hour and a half yesterday because I had some time, and it's total crap. And the thing is, I found his ex-wife. I know not that I'm stalking her. I know where she lives. I know her phone number. I wonder if she knows that he's putting this crap out about her. I wonder. I really, really wonder. Because they aren't married anymore, and I figured out who she was. So there's that. But I wanted to talk about that just because if any of you have seen that, I wanted you to know, hey, well, what's this? Just wanted to warn you beforehand. Let me see. Yeah, Heather says, how do I not know about this guy? I haven't seen that, but I could have missed the post. Sheree, I know that family did a Q&A, but in order to participate, you had to contribute to the Q&A. Who knows, Sheree, maybe, or you had to commit to the GoFundMe. Maybe that's what he got ticked off about. He wasn't allowed to ask any questions because they started all this. That's always possible. That's possible. Heather says, yes, I'm going to need all the info. Kathy says, two totally unrelated disappearances, in my opinion. Jennifer, 2006. Thank you, Kathy. They both went missing in 2006. Well, there's, sometimes that's all it takes for some people to start equating things. There are a lot of people who went missing in Florida in 2006. It's a state with a lot of people. It's now the third most populous state. So there's a lot of people that went missing in 2006. How do we know they aren't all related? Heather says, I'm not going to read that, Heather, but that's funny. Valerie says, I didn't know either, but honestly, he sounds crazy. Susanna, really mean troll. Michelle, I wonder if she could get him for slander. He might best be careful. That may be, maybe we just don't know. I just don't know. Once again, I don't know this guy, so he may be totally off his rocker, losing his mind, or it's totally the opposite direction. He's just trolling everybody and for whatever reason, and he's totally sane. It could be all over the spectrum there. Who knows? Florida is crazy, unlike Texas. Well, that's why I live here, Cherie. Have you had trolls on here, Angela? That's what Cherie's in charge of. I will tell you that recently we had a guy who I had to block from the group because of something that he wrote. And then he wrote me a very nasty message. And I don't respond to those people. I don't respond. I just block them. I just got no time for it. So yes, I guess the answer, Angela, is yes. I think early on in this live show's life, we had more than we have now. I don't know why. There's more viewers than ever, but we have fewer trolls than ever. So I don't know why that is. But sure, we've had some trolls in the group who get in there and they want to post about their new, mixtape coming out or something. We've had stuff like that. They automatically get deleted. And especially when it came to the Tom Brown case, things got somewhat nasty and we had to block a lot of people because of that. But as I continue to say, we have how many 8,000 people in the group, and we've only blocked about 30 people, which isn't that many. Sheree says we've had very few, very minimal, great group. Yeah. Okay. So that's that. Once again, if you maybe do a search out there, you might find it. What was also telling to me was that anytime I see these types of rumors, I will tell you, I'll be the honestly, the first place I go to Web Sleuths. Because that has, you usually go there, you have all the rumors and everything else. Not one time has this guy ever posted there. And usually when somebody knows stuff that's actually could be true and everything, they posted in there. There was nothing in there, which also told me that this guy was just some sort of crank. Let's move on to something else. Rohan Brown. He was a guy who disappeared in Poughkeepsie, New York in 2008. And he was in his car and disappeared. What we might call a destination disappearance. Well, he was found. His car was found, and there were remains in it. And they believe that it is Rohan Brown, Rohan Brown. It's a case that's still on the Charlie Project if you want to read about it. Well, the car was found in the Hudson River, and there remains in it, and it is believed that Rohan is in there. And I think that this is a situation very much like Esther Westenbarger's. And it got me to thinking. Here's something that I want to send out to all of you. You know how much I love when private people get involved in disappearances like John Polos from a couple months ago, even though I think some of his procedures were not what I have done. And we have different ideas about what happened to Julie Weflin and the other women that we talked about. But I love it that he has the energy to get involved and doing digging and everything else. I love that. What I would recommend to you is that if you have any disappearances in your area that fall under these criteria that I'm going to talk about, they're probably worth looking into. What I would say is any disappearance that you hear about in your area where a man or woman out by himself or herself that has been out in the town, drinking, going clubbing, late night party, etc., they get in their car and they're driving home and they disappear, where the person seemingly had no enemies or there are no suspects or anything like that. The car and the person go missing, and it's a somewhat short drive, let's say less than an hour from wherever they were to wherever they were going. You should if you are an amateur sleuth out there, you should take a look at those disappearances. Those are probably disappearances in which what happened is probably what happened in Esther Westenbarger's case, where, of course, she drove into that retention pond. Or in Rohan Brown's case, same thing. He ends up in the Hudson River. I'm inclined to believe that when you hear those particular criteria, late night drinking, person with seemingly no enemies, car and the person go missing, and it was a somewhat short drive, you can almost guarantee it's with a high degree of probability that person probably got into some sort of accident on the way home, either went off some road in some rough area where they couldn't search, it's the car and the person just hasn't been found, like over the side of a cliff or something, or into a body of water. I think that's what we're starting to learn about those types of disappearances with those types of facts. Now, once again, if it turns out that the person wasn't drinking, if the person did have enemies, of course, the car's, of course, still around there, only the person goes missing. And if it was a longer drive or something like that, then there are a lot more possibilities. But if you can find those types of disappearances following that with that criteria, and you're looking to get involved in a disappearance, those are probably good ones to take a look at and consider if you're going to get, into your first disappearance, because there is a certain amount of likelihood, that's certainly over 50%, that those people and their cars got into some accident that where the car and the person just haven't been found yet because they once again went into a body of water or went over the side of a road. And despite all search efforts, they haven't been found. Of course, in Esther Westenbarger's, it seems she might not have even been on the correct route. Of course, that needs to be considered as well. I know for me, there is a disappearance that we've not yet covered on Unfound, and I don't know if we will ever get to it. The family's kind of backed away at this point, but we have a disappearance here of Robert Helfrey, who's been missing for over 15 years, where, once again, he was late night drinking, seemingly had no enemies. He and his car went missing, and it was a very short drive from where he was drinking to his apartment complex. He went missing. Poof. He was you can find him on the Charlie Project. You can also find him on missingveterans.com. I've actually met his mother in person. It's a local disappearance. I went to her house maybe about 6 months ago and met with her. I drove over there. The more I think about it, I'm inclined to believe that maybe Robert had this happen to him as well. That, of course, we have a lot of retention ponds and canals and everything in Florida, that he might have taken a wrong turn and went into the water somewhere. So just throwing that out there. If you want to get into this, you want to take an interest in a disappearance, you're maybe going to take some of those lessons you can learn at Unfound on the Ground. Those are probably the disappearances to start with, because you can do a lot from home. You can look at maps, look at different directions and avenues and streets and routes that the person could have taken. Maybe if they're drinking, maybe they took a wrong turn. You can start looking from satellite maps, looking at those canals and ponds and lakes that are near roads and things. And then you can actually get out there in your car and start driving around and see, what kind of makes sense here. So that's what occurred to me when I saw this disappearance regarding Rohan Brown. And I think it's very relevant given that Esther Westenbarger, her and her car were found recently. Suzanne says, I've seen that. More people in cars in water than I ever knew. Yeah. Heather, Adventures with a Purpose finds cars underwater and have found a few missing people. Right. That's a good example, Heather. Very good. Yeah, some people commenting on that YouTube channel, Adventures with a Purpose. Heather says, I really like that they are so cautious not to show any bodies. They're respectful in their finds. Heather, I haven't watched them in a while, Suzanne. I need to catch up. So obviously there are some people out there doing that. But for the rest of you who maybe don't have as much experience as they do, these probably are the kinds of disappearances that are good to start on. Because with being that it's a short drive, these people don't seemingly, at least obviously, have any, at least appearance-wise, have any enemies. You can start narrowing down the possibilities, and knowing that the car and the person went missing. So that's just what I wanted to say. I wanted you to think about those types of disappearances once again, if you want to get involved. Let's answer the final question of the night. Nicole, with 2 L's, asked me, do I have any 50th birthday plans? Well, no, I don't. And it's going to be kind of tough given everything that's going on. With so many things locked down and you have to wear masks and all these things. Nicole, I have to tell you that probably my 50th, did I say wedding? 50th birthday plans are going to be quite minimal, probably, which is fine. That's totally fine. I know it's a big number, has a 0 on the end of it, so it's big. But given everything that's going on, I'm probably going to keep it low key. If everything was normal and there was no COVID-19 and everything wasn't getting locked down again, I Might do something. Here's what I know that I probably wouldn't do. Probably wouldn't be going to a strip club or anything like that. I lived in Vegas for 13 and a half years and never went to a strip club. So, well, that's technically not true, but I never went there for to watch women dance or anything. I was actually in a strip club because we were shooting a music video there. But so that would be out. Probably maybe go to Texas de Brazil or something like that, but probably given everything that's going on, I'm probably good. Just take a pass on all of it. Just a couple more things. We got the 4th anniversary episode coming up. That'll be the first Friday in September, and we will celebrate it the way we usually do, playing the first episode ever on Unfound, the disappearance of Suzanne Lyle. And the week before that, so that would be the last Friday in August, we will have our next update episode. Of course, there's going to be a lot to talk about there. Probably get into a little bit more in depth about a lot of things that have transpired with, of course, Laura Bible, Ashley Freeman, Andrea Bowman, Esther Westenbarger, and others. So I'm anticipating that episode is going to be long. So that'll be just like last year. There'll be 2 weeks in a row. It'll be the last Friday in August update episode. And then the next week will be the 4th anniversary episode where I replay that episode with my interview with Mary Lyle, who I just talked to maybe a month ago. Anything else? Posting rules very quickly. I know I haven't talked about this recently, but we do have posting rules in the discussion group. Anybody who's watching here probably does not violate them, but I just want you all to know that those posting rules exist for a reason. I think the biggest mistake people make when they get into the group is that they start randomly posting disappearances, meaning disappearances that Unfound hasn't covered, disappearances that happened 10 years ago, 13 years ago, 23 years ago, just randomly. And I feel for all of those families. I do. The reason, though, that type of posting is not allowed is because if it was just allowed, that's all it would be. People would just be going in there. Well, I know about this disappearance. I'm just going to post the link to the Charlie Project site. Well, I'm just going to post to the Facebook page. And that would be all that it was. And there would be no discussion. It would be just an endless stream of disappearances where, it might become like people like on Twitter or Instagram when they're following too many people. After a while, the pictures and the words don't even register. It's just like, it's just like, vroom, 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 it's going by. It doesn't really register with you mentally. And so that's why those types of posts are not allowed. They are allowed if there is new information, if there is a discovery or there is a charge, a suspect is charged, even for cases that Unfound hasn't covered, that's certainly allowed. But if it's just flyer after flyer after flyer after Facebook page after Charlie Project page, it's just too much. It just becomes spam. As much as I feel for all of these people, and I do, and I would hope to cover all of those disappearances on Unfound eventually. Otherwise, though, that people will start to take advantage of that, and that's all they'll do, and it'll just become spam. So, I just wanted to talk about that. And also the other thing, and I talked about how this guy got banned recently. The other thing is that making jokes about people who disappeared, whether it's a missing person that we've covered on the program or somebody famous, has happened with this woman who was out with her son on a lake and she drowned, and somebody in the group made fun of her or made, let's just say, a R-rated comment regarding her. That's an automatic block. Automatic. He didn't like it, but that's the way we do things. So that's the reason. And once again, if you are unclear, in the announcements section in the group, You can go in there, scroll down. It's one of the lower ones. You can see what is allowed and what is not allowed. And I would say this, if you want to do something and it's not on the allowed list, but it's not on the not allowed list, that means probably it's not allowed. So, whereas I can guarantee you, as long as you stick to the things in the allowed column, you're not going to get, your post isn't going to get deleted. What I would also ask is, before you post something, once again, whether it has to do with Laura Bible and Ashley Freeman's case, or some of these topics that become hot very quickly, make sure that somebody hasn't already posted the same thing. We get a lot of that as well. Copies of the same article being posted. Before you do that, just take some time, 30 seconds, scroll down, make sure that somebody hasn't already posted something about it first. All right. Angela, thank you. Happy 50 to me. Thank you, Angela. I want you to know that I certainly don't feel 50. I don't think that I look whatever 50 years old looks like. I feel fantastic going out and playing disc golf, riding bike on the beach and everything. I've had no midlife crisis. My 40s were a great time. It was a kind of a weird time. It was a good time, but it was a weird time as well. A lot of things that couldn't have expected in my 40s. And, but I really can't complain. I know so many men and women around my age have already had cancer. Of course, a lot of them have already died of diseases. A lot of them have, health problems that they continue to fight. They've had money problems and divorce problems and child problems and work problems and all of those things. I can't even begin to tell you how fortunate that I am to be in where I am on the verge of 50. Really, I don't know how much longer this luck can continue, but I am going to try to enjoy it while it lasts. So, I'm not sad about turning 50 at all. Not for 1 second. Totally fine by me. There you go. Very quick to make me mad. Yeah. Right, Michelle. Yeah, Heather, it happened, Paul. This lady was mad. It wasn't even about personal life. It was a body image. Yeah, it was a guy who did that. And yeah, he got blocked. And then he sent me a message and I had to block him there. And then he sent me another message somewhere else and I had to block him there. Just crazy. Sheree says, I've had like a try-year crisis. I'm sorry to hear that, Sheree. Yes, respect at all times. Thank you, Suzanne. I may need to go. Well, my birthday falls on a Saturday, so I'm probably not going to be able to do any shooting on the day of my birthday, but that will certainly be something that I'll be doing around that time, Suzanne. Yeah. You definitely don't look like I imagined 15 when I was 17. Yeah, none of us do. That's certainly true, Sheree. All right, this Friday, we're going to be covering the disappearance of Jacob Paddock Weeks. He has a hyphenated last name, Paddock Weeks. He disappeared from Indian Hills, Colorado on February 2nd, 2019. So Groundhog Day, a year and a half ago. The guests, I have two guests speaking at the same time. George, who is his father, and his stepmother, Amanda. George and Amanda Weeks. You've probably seen George in the discussion group. He's a new member there. And the title for this episode is called Disappearance Curve. And the reason it's called that is because the circumstances for Jacob's disappearance is that he was on Route 285 in Colorado. He was going eastbound / northbound, and I am going to do a map and a video for this disappearance. So be looking for that on Friday. he was speeding on this particular road. It's a 4-lane road, but it's fairly windy. It's through the mountains of Colorado. And he was going well over the speed limit, and he hit the inside guardrail. There was a curve, and he didn't make the curve, so he hit the inside guardrail, went along it, and eventually his truck spun around, and it was facing traffic. Didn't hit any other vehicles. This happened in broad daylight. Well, presumably Jacob, got out of the vehicle. A witness said that he lit a cigarette, walked to the side of the road, went down over the bank of this highway, never seen again. And the big issue with this disappearance is that due to where it is, it's a mountainous area, fairly wooded, a lot of area to cover. This is not like he disappeared in the center of a large city, maybe something like Jesse Ross. He disappeared in this area, not a lot of houses or anything like that. It's very difficult to search. So the Weeks families had a hard time getting people together, a large enough group, to go search around this area. So that's part of it. The other issue, though, is that the witness who saw this wreck didn't really see Jacob's face, did not really see the driver's face. Could tell that the guy was white and it was a particular size and he was wearing a hoodie, but the hoodie was pulled up over his head. And there could be a reason to believe that it wasn't Jacob driving his truck at all. And that'll be something for you to decide. What was found in the truck once the state police got there, however long, of course, we would know when a vehicle's in the middle of the road, they're going to get there fairly fast. They got there and never, of course, did a cursory search around the area to see if the driver could be found. Wasn't. But Jacob's wallet was in the truck. 2 cell phones were in his truck, his own and his grandmother's, which you'll find out the reason for that in the episode. And there was drug paraphernalia in the truck, and Jacob did have an addiction. So that is the disappearance. The other big issue is nobody knows where he was coming from, and nobody knows where he was going to. So once again, this is Jacob Paddock Weeks. It's not a disappearance. This is not on the Charlie Project, but it is on NamUs. Indian Hills, Colorado. It's Route 285. February 2nd, 2019. The guests are George, his father, and Amanda, his stepmother. George and Amanda Weeks. And the episode is called Disappearance Curve. So I think that is it. Long show tonight. Had a lot to talk about. So, Paula says it's 17. We thought 50 was close to death. It just seemed so far away, Paula. It really did. And but I have to tell you, it does seem like it took a long time for me to get to 50. So I guess I can't really complain. Thank you, Christine. So what we do tonight, talked a little bit about what's going on with me, biking, disc golf. I don't have another disc golf tournament until not this weekend, but next weekend. It's just one round on one day. Masks now have to be worn in the common areas of my building, which means I'll probably be checking my mail at 3 a.m. We talked about the Jessica Garino poll, talked about Linda Stoltzfoos and Justo Smoker being taken into custody for a disappearance. We talked about Unfound on the Ground, Jennifer Kessy / Brandy Hall, and that conspiracy theory that's out there that I'm sure you're all going to try to find now, and how I think that guy's full of it. The new project that Cherie came up with that she will announce at the proper time. Rohan Brown, a disappearance that was, it seems, was solved, finding him and his car in the Hudson River. I talked about the posting rules, talked about the 4th anniversary episode and the next update episode that will happen next month. Me turning 50 August 1st, Ashley Freeman and Laura Bible. Took a bunch of great questions from all of you. Had some very generous contributions through the super chat tonight. Thank you very much. And finally, talked about this coming Friday's episode, the disappearance of Jacob Paddock Weeks from Indian Hills, Colorado on February 2nd, 2019. That is it. And I'm glad that my voice still feels very strong after 2 hours. Thank you all. Thank you for tuning in. Great showing tonight. Once again, do not forget, if you've not liked this video yet, do it now. And also patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Or if you use PayPal, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. Good night, everyone. Thank you.